from the start. And I didn't get to have Garth in my last big show, and this was my dance for her.
Sweet.
She was a woman who really chose my family, and we could not be more appreciative. She transformed our lives every single day. She was pretty much the most important figure in my life in the last 3 to 5 years. And I'm just going to share one memory with you all that really just always brings a smile to my face. We went to Spain together. We traveled across the seas. Long flight for my wedding. And she was there every step of the way, making sure that my day was going to be exactly how I want it to be. She made sure I had the dress I felt would be the most beautiful on me, made sure that I was ready the day of, made sure that she got to know my family in Spain, even though she doesn't speak any Spanish. And when we were dancing, I was on the dance floor like I always am, and I turned around, and there she is too. And she was just having so much fun. And if you know Garth, there was a period of time where she didn't think she was ever going to be able to move her hips that way, let alone be shaking it on the dance floor in Spain. And so when I think about Garth, I think about a woman who knew really how to enjoy life, and who never let anything get her down, and who knew how to live in the moment. And when I think about her, I will think about her shaking it, and I will smile every single day, because that's the kind of person she is, and that's the impact she had on me.
All right, so a little background as kind of Jeanette introduced, and can we give a round of applause again for Jeanette? So you guys saw this sign-up list that was in the front, and if you didn't, don't worry, we're going to have plenty of time. But we have this sign-up list, and the idea is that we're going to call you up, and everyone's going to get a few minutes if they signed up to get a chance to share. And we don't want this to be any sort of pressure, but we do want everyone to be mindful that there's so many folks who want to share. So I'm going to be up here to help or support you in any way, and I'll be calling out names. And then towards the end, probably me, my brother, and Jeanette will share some more words. So the first person I have on the list is Patty. Would Patty like to come up? Patty Hansen, yes. All right, give a round of applause for Patty.
I have my jacket with my flabby arms. I'm pretty loud.
You're pretty loud?
I'm a retired school teacher. Can you hear my voice?
No, Mike.
All right. Anyway, I met Garth about 12 years ago at Deep Canyon Tennis Club out of the desert. And they call me Spontaneous Patty. Well, Garth was my spontaneous friend. I could call her at a moment's notice out there at Palm Desert, and she'd be willing to do all sorts of things, from musicals to plays. She was also a very kind person. And I was learning bridge, and those of you who know her, she's an expert bridge player, and we have duplicate bridge out there. And I said, "Oh, would you mind being my partner?" I said, "I'm just a beginner." She goes, "No, it's okay, it's just for fun." I mean, that's the type of person she was. Let me see what else here. Okay, and we did tennis together too. She turned me on to some friends, like Samantha's here, over there. I don't think she's going to speak, so I'm going to say something. Garth also turned me on to Vicky's out there, and this wonderful piano player that we would go to and have so much fun out there. Let's see here. I was going to some of you may have seen, but this was the last photo. I'll pass it around of her and Barbara Jacobson and I out there at Deep Canyon for the season opener last November. I'll just pass it around. But the thing that probably we shared together that was the biggest memory was at the last minute, like the day before, I got these half-price tickets to Desert Trip, that 3-day festival out there with Paul McCartney and Bob Dylan, the Rolling Stones, and I forget who else. And she said yes, and so this is a picture of us, and I also posted it on the Deep Canyon, and everybody loved it. and talk about rock and rolling and, shaking her booty. we did that for the 3 days out there. And then I just feel really fortunate. I'll just close with, I feel really fortunate that in February she was out there at Deep Canyon. And her generosity, she had her sister-in-law Ruth out there. And so for 3 days she took me under her wing, and I got to join all them. And we went to the Living Desert. We went to Shields Date Shake Place. We had breakfast at one of those great places out there. And we ended up at one of her favorite places, Pizza Vino. If you're out Palm Desert, go to it. And we had her favorite Brussels sprouts. And just about a month ago, Barbara and I went out there and we had her Brussels sprouts and we toasted to God. So I love you, Garth, and I know you're one of my many guardian angels now. Thank you.
All right, so I think I got a motion that her brother would like to say a few words. Is that true?
Yeah, that's
All
true.
right, let's get around with guys. You can kind of call it here.
Thanks. There's one distinction I can claim that nobody else in this group can claim as it pertains to Garth, and that is I've known Garth longer than any of you. I was born 2 years after Garth was born. But I also have to say that you people know Garth far better than I do. You had far more impact on her life than those of us who were back in Cincinnati had. And I suspect also that many of you didn't realize that Garth was not Garth's first name. And as you probably know now, her name was Margaret Garth Steinert. And I don't know what my mother's attraction with Garth was, but I think she decided that Garth Margaret Steinert didn't roll off your tongue quite the same way as Margaret Garth Steinert did, and that's why Garth is her middle name as opposed to her first name. We grew up in a little town that was a reconstruction project named Greene Hills, Ohio. There were approximately 50 kids in her high school class. After she graduated from high school, she went to Denison University, and there's some question amongst those of us who were whether she was at Denison 1 year or 2 years. And maybe Betsy knows the answer to that. But Garth transferred to Ohio University, and that's where she graduated with a degree in some kind of science. I think it's probably biology. Now, almost 2 years, or almost 60 years to the day, two young women, 22, 23 years old, climbed into a Ford of dubious performance and headed to California. Those two young women, Betsy and Garth. And let's go back to 1958 when they did this. This was early June, probably within 2 weeks after Garth graduated from college. What was 1958 like, or what was life like in 1958? There weren't any credit cards, there weren't any expressways, there weren't any GPSs to tell you how to get there. Probably they didn't have a checking account, yet they got into this car and said, we're going to LA. And my sister had had this dream for quite some time to do that. I don't know when she talked Betsy into it, or maybe Betsy talked her into it, I don't know. But at the other end, in 1958, there were no chain motels, there were no convenience superstores where you bought your gasoline. Motels were mom and pop operations, gas stations were mom and pop operations. There were no 4-lane highways, yet these two women said, basically, the hell with all that, we're going to Los Angeles. And what awaited them in Los Angeles? Basically nothing. They did not know anybody here. They did not have jobs. They did not have a place to live. But they got to LA and they made it their home. And you all know the rest of the story in terms of Garth's life, but I just wanted to share a little bit of history about the enormity of the undertaking of those two young women to drive basically 2/3 of the way across the United States. I assume they did it on Route 66, but I don't know. And they went through many, many small towns. And it probably took them 10 or 12 days to do that trip. And they were very brave. And they were well rewarded because of their efforts. So I just thought I would share a little bit of the background of how Garth ended up in Los Angeles.
Just wondering, Betsy, did you want to, you're not on the list, but did you want to say something? I know you're an important part of the story. Yeah, we'll give Betsy a round of applause.
Now look at the real story.
Yeah, already. Betsy brings the story.
Okay, 1 year, Lou. 1 year.
Let's hear the story.
1 year, okay.
Well, Louie, I always try to hide my age, but you're giving it away. I always think I'm still 28. I argue with that. I don't want to talk to him. But anyhow, Garth was the most wonderful friend in the whole world. I mean, she did everything for everybody, like you've already heard. But I mean, she was wonderful. She was always in a good mood. She was cheerful. She always included everybody in everything. And I don't know how she left this planet so soon because she still belongs here, but that's the way it is.
Okay, so the next I have on the list is Kathleen. Is Kathleen ready? Let's see.
With that being said, I didn't.
Yes? Oh, well, here's a Kathleen Preble.
Yes.
Oh, okay, maybe somebody signed
on
you.
the wrong list.
Oh, you did? You don't have to share, but if you'd like to.
Well, all I can say is I only knew her a few years in the desert, and I did that painting because that's Garth.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me, Ted.
One day we went up to the desert center up north of Deep Canyon Tennis Club, and I took a picture up there and did the painting, and so I have that memory of her, and I keep that painting in the desert. And I love playing bridge with her in Dennis and hiking around places like that. And she loved nature. She knew every tree, every flower.
It'll be over here. Okay, so I think the next person, Maury.
Hi, my name is Lori Taylor, and this is Elaine Citro. I met Gus through and her my husband. I met Gus through Elaine when I was minor city club's tennis team captain. I was trying to recruit her into my team, and then found out she belongs to Riviera, and there was a big crane. But since then, we kept on playing tennis at her place with Nancy, one more person, and we formed a team called BATS, Bridge and Tennis Playing Seniors. This is our uniform. And so, like when we went to swap meet in Palm Springs, staying at her place and Gus's place, this way we can always find each other. That was how it is. And now we lost Nancy and Gus, and so just two of us have to make the most and just wonderful friend.
Elaine Citron, my husband Irv. We met Garth and Richard Greene, I would say 1984. We bought a condo at Deep Canyon Country Club, and there we met the both of them, played tennis with them, had barbecues with them, and found out not only did they live in the desert, they were our neighbors because we live in Marina Del Rey, but they lived in Playa Del Rey. Okay, so we became neighbors in both homes. And so with Garth, I introduced her to Mari. We played tennis together. We were the group that stayed together for many years. And the other thing we did with Garth a lot was tennis at Indian Wells in March. That was it still is, a very big tennis tournament. And she would sit in front of us with her friends, we had our friends, and that was another outing we shared together. Oh, tell that story.
We went to Central America for 3 weeks, but we didn't play tennis. So we had a wonderful time sharing Belize and Panama, and we went quite a ways into the jungle areas. And we had wonderful times with Rick's family was here, and we had a terrific guy. We had wonderful laughs, a lot of laughs. And Elaine and Maury and Nancy, for years they would go to Gardena for their dim sum and their massages. So we're here to celebrate a wonderful life, and we thank you so much. Thank you.
So next up, we have Barbara. Do we have Barbara around? There she is. She's coming from the back.
Ooh, do I have to go all the way up?
Can everybody hear Barbara? She can stay there. That's okay.
Why don't you bring the mic?
I'm Barbara Jacobson, and I was another desert friend in Deep Canyon. I think I knew her over 30 years. I have a condo there on the same street, and she was with her husband when I first met her, and I was with her boyfriend. And we just clicked, and we knew each other from then on. And I know this sounds fun. I remember her voice. I loved her voice. When she'd answer the phone, she'd go, hello, or so, and I wish I could have that wonderful, soothing, welcoming, sweet voice. I really remember that. And we did everything together when we were there. We'd meet at the flagpole every morning, and we'd walk, and we'd go to the movies, and, well, you name it. We did it all. And she would never complain. She never, she wanted to do everything, just like Patty said. I remember one time I was redoing my couch, and she came over and we took the legs off and put new legs on. She was so helpful. And another friend, wanted me to read this, and I hope you don't mind, but he was a bridge partner.
Thank you, Barbara. Next we have, I hope I'm saying this right, Kaylee Morgan. Kaylee? Katie, I'm sorry.
This must be my best.
My fault.
Katie? So I was taking a few moments to text to myself what I wanted to say. And do you recognize that? That's the ring thing. Somebody's at my front door. Sorry. Of that, and she took me to the living desert. We talked about that. She and my father actually arranged for me to go to Maui, and because she had, I think, friends in Hawaii, and so then she introduced my dad to Hawaii, who said he'd never go, and then I went, and it was beautiful, and I've been back several times since, so I know Carl. I know she introduced me to Betsy here. She introduced me to these two interlopers here, Liz and Roger, who have been continued friends for many, many years. She took me to the Getty for the first time. And she took me to the Hollywood Bowl for the first time. I live in Sacramento. I'm from Michigan. Okay, so being able to come down and go there, those places, she's an amazing role model in my heart. I just never expected that she would leave us so soon, and I know that you feel the same way. Anyway, and she'll always be here with me. And I'm grateful for her for being, for being a really positive role model. And by the way, I have met, where's Rachel? I met you and your dog, I think, at Garth's just once, but I think I met your mother and Garth, and perhaps your brother. You were little, you came to my father's house, I think, for Thanksgiving, one year, probably in the early 2000s.
In the desert?
In the desert.
I remember.
And anyway, so thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here. Thanks. That's where we met.
Wow. Next, Dylan. Do we have Dylan? Dylan. All right, so Dylan's come from left behind. Go ahead, give him a round of applause. Am I loud enough?
Okay, to be honest, I thought this was a sign-in, not a sign-up. Okay, well, I can't say no, so. Garth was always part of my family. I was part of the Hanscoms, with Carol and Donald, so. She always watched over us, I guess. Like, she basically treated me like and I feel like I treated her like she was like an aunt to me, so. She helped me through a lot. She put me through school and everything, and she was always there, like, to talk to and to help you out. Even though she had a hard exterior, but deep down she was kind-hearted and was always willing to help everyone out. So, but whenever I would see her, she loved her tennis. She loved traveling, and I don't really understand tennis, but she always tried to explain it to me and everything. So,
I don't understand.
I mean, she liked it, and I played along. But. Yeah, she told me that her favorite place to travel was South Africa, so that was always her favorite place, which is what she told me. So, I mean, I'll have to go there one day and see for myself. So, yeah, but she's still with us and everything. So, even though she's gone, she's not really gone, but she'll always be in our hearts. So,
All right, sorry about all the people that I'm calling who thought they were signing up. So if that's you, don't feel obligated to come. And also we'll have an opportunity for anybody who thought this was a sign-up list and wanted to speak. So we'll make that work. But the next name, Dorothy. Is Dorothy signing up, or does she want to talk? Okay, so we can move on. There's Dorothy. All right, give Dorothy a round of applause.
Dorothy, but I didn't sign up. I don't know whether anybody remembers Molly McFadden, who was a history teacher at Marina Del Rey, but she's presently fighting Parkinson's in Nazareth House. And when I called her, she said she would be unable to come, but she wanted to come because she and Garth go back way, 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 way back. She hailed from Pennsylvania on Highway 66 too, and taught with Garth at Marina Del Rey, and then Garth went to Hamilton High School. So she just wanted to share that with you that she and Garth had had many very happy times. And I knew of one where they flew to London and picked up an RV and camped all the way through Europe and down into Morocco. And that was only one of the trips they had together. Thank you.
All right, so I'm just going to assume the rest of these names are just sign-in. So I'm going to go ahead, I guess, and share and invite, probably my brother and Bo afterwards.
Well,
then we'll open it up for whoever wants to come, or does somebody else
I don't think she
want to
should.
immediately come up? Okay, actually, why don't you come up right now? So this is...
I don't think he should assume anything. We need to tell him that.
Sister?
Oh, we wouldn't know it.
We wouldn't know it. I know her just 7 years short of what my brother did.
Oh.
But I'm afraid I was much more of a pest in her life.
No.
We didn't live in very great accommodations, and so whatever age I would have been when I had to then share a room with her, she hated me. But fortunately, that didn't last all our lives. And I guess from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank all of you for sharing about her. And none of us here will ever forget how special she was and how wonderful it was to have her in the world. I'm going to look at it like she's still right here with us. And I hope all of us can keep her alive.
All right, just to be sure, Tony, is Tony Scott? Tony, all right, so Tony's coming in from the back. Here we go.
Okay.
Give a round of applause.
Tony Scott, I used to play bridge and run bridge games, and I know there are many bridge players here. You already heard from Maury. You know, when somebody plays bridge, you get to learn a little bit about their personality and their character, because you see them under frustrating and tiresome situations. And I just want to say that, you know, Garth was always very calm and always a very pleasant person to be around at the bridge table and under those circumstances. And I should also acknowledge Pete Minotti in the back there, always a constant companion at the bridge table. And so it was a real pleasure.
And then the last we have on the list is Kristen. Kristen Hansen?
All right. My name is Matthew, aka Kristen. I'm part of the Carol Hanscom family. Unfortunately, my grandma can't be here today, but we're here on her behalf. I want to say I've known Garth since I was born. She was technically she was my parental guardian on all my flights to Hawaii. We probably spent every Thanksgiving with her in Palm Springs as well. We call her Aunt Garth. She's part of the family. She helped me go through college as well. She paid all my books, helped me with rent. I wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't for her today. So it's really sad. Fortunately, I got time to say goodbye to her in Hawaii when I was in Australia. Thank you, Jeanette. Really appreciate that. Garth, I love you and I'll miss you. And I remember her last words told me was travel while you're young. So I have been doing that. I just flew from Sri Lanka to Singapore to Malaysia to LA. Got here last night. So I love you, Garth, and everyone loves you. You'll always be in my mind and my heart. And yes, thank you.
And here we go.
After hearing everybody speak, there's a repetition here about tennis, the desert, the trips, and everything else. I wanted to tell you something that I know that I don't think anybody else here knows. That, and maybe you do, but nobody's mentioned it. When I came Route 66, the same way everybody else did, I had $39 in my pocket. And believe it or not, I existed on that for a week or two until I got a job because I had a friend to stay with. And so I started at Marina Junior High the year that Garth went to Westlake. But because she was so connected to all these wonderful Marina people, I got to meet her right away. And in those days, yes, we had great times at the Admiral's Dinghy and all those wonderful bars and TGIS. We had a faculty that just didn't end when it came to having a real camaraderie and a good time. And we were having a TGIF party at my apartment one night, And after everybody left, there were 4 of us that were left. And pretty drunk as a skunk at that point. And we were sitting in the middle of the floor, Indian style, and lamenting on the fact that none of us had a boyfriend. We were all single. There would be no Social Security left when we got old enough to collect it. We better invest in something. So the 4 of us made a pact that night that we wouldn't go to Europe, we wouldn't go to Mexico, we were going to forget the trips and save some money and make an investment. 3 of the 4 of us did it. And the 3rd person is not here tonight, unfortunately. I thought she lives in Palm Desert also out there with Samantha out that way. And so we made our first investment together. And so a lot of you know about the fact that that was, her first apartment building, but you probably don't know that when we did this, we did all the work ourselves. We rented, we painted, we carpeted, we tiled, we did everything. But what Garth did that none of the rest of us did, she did all the plumbing, and she did all the electricity. So there was, so if you added up all the other things that she could do, she can do that too. So that was one of the blessings. So we each had our responsibility as far as maintaining those apartments together. So we spent a lot of years. Of course, when we did start having boyfriends, they did some of the heavy-duty work for us. I can remember Richard helping us repair stairs to the 2nd story and various things like that. But we were kind of felt that we were known for working our butts off and playing our butts off just as hard. We had a really balanced life and a lot of fun doing it. And then from there we moved into, that particular building was our 2nd building. So we eventually had 3 buildings together. And at that point, my husband was having heart issues and Richard had had a stroke, and that's about the time we decided it's time to get out of this stuff and get rid of property and start enjoying our life. And then she was able to do more of the bridge. That's when all the bridge and the additional tennis came into her life. So that's what our early life was, just working really hard, painting, electrical, plumbing, you name it.
Tom and I lived in Chicago, came back to visit us there. I mean, she always was just on the bright side. I mean, I feel like God really, truly blessed me to have her in my life. She's been one of my closest, dearest friends. And I'm so fortunate to have met you and her 3 lovely adopted children, because they've meant so much to her, as everybody else did. I mean, she just gave from her heart more than I can even imagine most people doing. The other person that did not come today was her good friend, Joni Weaver. Joni was going to come out with one of Garth's friends that went to grade school, I think, with her. And this morning she called and was very, very sick and wasn't able to come. So I said, well, come with us. And she said, no. She said, I just don't think I can hear all the story. She said, I've closed that in my mind and I've accepted it in my mind, but I just can't sit there and listen to it all again. And we all have our way of sharing our sorrows and so forth, but to be here today, this is making a closure for me, because it's still been very, very difficult for me to even think that she's gone and not to come out to the desert and have lunch or dinner or play tennis or do whatever. I never was old enough to play bridge, so I never got to play and I got to meet her sister too when she come out. I mean, the introduction to so many variety types of people. I mean, how lucky we are. I mean, it's kind of like we belong in Garth's club or something. She just meant so much, and I'm so thankful for my husband to be such supportive of her too, and being together, the 3 of us, we go places and do things, and it just, our life has been so enriched with her. And I thank you today for being here, and thank you everyone for being so kind. And Jeanette, I met my new best friend when we were at the hospital. She called me.
So,
you wouldn't believe it anyway.
You have something Trisha's bringing.
I got this email last night from Jim Friel. He was, we traveled with the Friels, Garth and I, and the Commodore of the Marina Del Rey, the yacht club, and so we had that whole circle of friends also. And when his wife got Alzheimer's, it lasted quite a while. And Garth helped him all through that whole process. And so this letter came last night to him, to Jim. Dear Dad, I'm thinking of you today in a very special way. Garth was a uniquely lovely woman. She was a good companion and helped you get through very hard times. I am blessed to have known her and was extremely happy to have her as your special friend when Mom was no longer present. She was kind and low-key and called my kids kiddos. They really liked her, and I think she really liked them too. Please know that you were as significant to her as she was to you. Remember with joy the fun adventures and good cheer you shared. Sending abundant love and hugs and kisses. And he wanted me to share this letter from his daughter expressing both of their sentiments about Garth.
Fun to share. I'm Garth's sister-in-law, and I remember many years ago when Garth would make kind of infrequent trips to Cincinnati to visit her mother and father. She would come maybe, I don't know, every 3 years. It wasn't very often. But when she came to Cincinnati, she was a princess, a queen. She was loved and adored, and Grandpa Henry took us all out to dinner and paid for it all. Now the rest of us that were there 24/7 never went out to dinner with Grandpa Henry. But when Garth came to town, it was a celebration. She was sorely missed and loved by her family. And I feel very blessed myself that I got to spend 2 weeks with her in the last 6 months of her life. She came to Florida in October to celebrate my birthday, and her cousins on her mother's side, John Marsland and Stan Marsland, also were there. So we really had kind of a family reunion with her cousins, and I had emails both from Stan and John expressing their sympathy and wanted to remember Cousin Stan, who sometimes I call Crazy Cousin Stan.
Amen.
Garth and I went, amen, I heard. Garth and I went on a sailing trip with Cousin Stan in the Bahamas, and we were almost left on an island. His wife was a sheller. She loved shells, and we went to some place called Shell Island, and in a dinghy, and I guess nobody watched the dinghy. While we're all getting shells, the dinghy is out to sea. This is in the middle of nowhere, and we didn't know what we were going to do. You know, all of a sudden we saw a ship. Crazy Cousin Stan, as I call him, took off his t-shirt and starts waving it around so that they could see us. And then he starts swimming out to this boat. Luckily, he's a good swimmer, and he made it. And they came and got us, and we lived on. Lots of adventures together, Garth and I. I will miss her dearly.
The last time I think Garth went out for dinner was when Ruth came to town, and it was our last dinner together.
February.
Yeah.
February 9th. As a
February
matter
9th.
of fact, I know it well.
So Bo, I don't know if you're ready to come up. Just wanted to say Bo has been instrumental and behind so many things with Garth. Like, you don't see him, open, a lot of different things, but he has his fingers in trying to make sure that everything works throughout a lot of this. So I just really wanted to make sure we gave a round of applause for Bo for all of this.
Thank you, Casey. My name's Bo, Garth's stepson, and
I want to thank all the family and everyone that came and, you know, giving stories. And it's amazing. I find out more about her every day. But I thought I was active. Jesus. Unbelievable. She had so much energy and was into so many different things, tennis and bridge. And we used to share stories when she used to travel. I remember one time she was going to Madagascar to see the spotted lemurs. I don't know if you know what spotted lemurs are, but they're monkeys, I guess? No. They're lemurs. They live way high up in the canopy. Tough crowd. They live way up high in the canopies. And so if you know where Madagascar is, off the coast of Africa, and it takes, you know, it's like days and weeks, trains, planes, automobiles, you know, bicycles, motorcycles, walking. So she never got to see any of the spotted lemurs because they're very difficult to see. So I think, I thought it was a great story, but it just, another example of how far and wide she traveled. I saw some pictures. I have her laptop, and I got to see a lot of pictures, which I didn't realize were on there, but of Spain and other trips that she took. And wow, she's been a lot of places. So I think anyone that traveled with her, you can tell she's always had a smile on her face, and, you know, very happy person. Yeah, she had the hard outer shell. I think someone brought that up. Yeah, soft inside, hard on the outside. But I want to, you know, say that she took care of my dad after he had a pretty bad stroke. And sorry. She visited him every day. And
She called him if she was far away.
yeah, she was always there, and it's just amazing. So you hear the same stories over and over that, you know, she was giving, she cared about people, she took care of them, she, you know, gave of herself, so generous. And so that's what I remember most about her. She taught me a lot, and I want to be like her as far as how active she was, and becoming so good at so many different things, like bridge. We donated all her bridge things to her bridge club. They were very, very happy, and they said, you know, she taught so many people about bridge, we're going to miss her. And I don't understand bridge, but it seems that it's kind of an aggravating. She loved tennis. I know she slowed down when she had her hip replacement. But she went to the matches, and she was very generous with charities. I know I've talked to some of them after the fact, and they all say the same thing. So, you know, God bless you. And I know there's lots of other things I could say and share, but we all cared about her. And you know, she went too early. I know she had a great life. And I love the stories of her leaving Cincinnati at 20. I mean, that's just, you know, trailblazer. Garth the trailblazer. So I think that's...
I got assigned the electrical jobs once I came in. A little comment to Bill Struckner. You know, something Garth leaves every one of us with is a little bit of her true legacy. Garth was a thinker.
Yes.
Often, Garth, you could hear the wheels turning. She often listened, she acted, she often said nothing. That was Garth. She leaves us all with a really legacy message. Think first.
anymore. Anyway, there's two things that have come out to me very clearly during this celebration of life. First of all, Garth's loyalty. Garth was a very, very loyal friend. And the second is networking. And look around, see somebody. We all know each other. I've known half a dozen people here. I've met many more today. And they're all terrific people. My wife and Garth were, believe it or not, sorority sisters at Denison, 6 years apart. They didn't know each other at Denison. And because they were sorority sisters, we became very close friends with Garth. And something that hasn't been mentioned today is about 3 or 4 years ago, Garth established a scholarship with Alpha Phi for sorority for the education of science and math kids. And I think that shows something about Garth, her love of children and her fondness for education. And that will be her legacy.
Yeah.
You know, using the microphone, you know, he's trying to facilitate things. So, of course, you've heard my name's Casey. My brother Travis and Rachel, you saw perform up here. So the way that we've come into Garth's family is that our mom had a really hard upbringing coming up. She grew up homeless. She traveled across the country, never knew her dad. Her mom was paranoid schizophrenic. She was in and out of housing, all sorts of abuse. And her life as a young teenager landed her eventually in Los Angeles. And she was struggling. And a biology teacher named Garth saw that she was struggling. And around that time period, you know, my mom was in and out of school. My mom, you know, was a very charismatic person. She was a great storyteller, and Garth took a liking to her. And somehow, you know, as Garth kind of tells the story, and our mom used to tell the story too, is that my mom kind of just talked her into adopting her. Because around this time, my mom emancipated herself as a minor just because just her housing situation, just her whole life was just too wild. It was just too crazy. So Garth, who was just a teacher, took in our mom, and she lived with Garth for a few years until she could get a little bit stable, until she graduated high school. And she was in our mom's life from that time forward as like an adopted daughter. And that's why you see with us, you know, as adopted grandkids, there's always just a joke because, you know, she was legally adopted by Garth, that we're, you know, her legally adopted grandchildren. So all that's to say is that it comes up to where we're at. You know, during our youth, you know, like our mom, I think this was probably Garth's doing, like we had to call her Aunt Garth. We didn't know who she really was. We were like kids, you know, and I guess Garth was like wanted to be young. So she's like, I'm not grandma. Don't call me grandma. I'm auntie. You know, I was like, okay, so we just knew her as Auntie Garth for the longest time until we were like, we figured out, I was like, oh, wait a second. And then we figured out the relationship. But, you know, she would take us to baseball games. She would, you know, come through for birthdays, and she would be in and out. But around the time when our dad passed away in high school, our mom started struggling again, and we were, you know, going through it. And then a few years later, our mom passed away. So around that time, you know, Garth came to a celebration of life that we had. And, you know, Garth had been, you know, part of our lives, but she's like, I want to, you know, make sure that I step in as the grandmother that I always wanted to be. And that's around the time where, you know, my sister, you know, she started, you know, living with Garth as she, you know, got her teaching credential and is a, you know, an accomplished teacher today. And, you know, because of course Garth, you know, has a legacy of teaching and education. She loved that. For myself, how I came to be kind of, you know, as close in Garth's life in this past time is that I'm getting my PhD at Stanford in education. And of course, I guess that's a big and I'm in the process, you know, about a year ago, writing my dissertation. So Garth was like, you know, why don't you come down and live with me? You don't have to be at Stanford, right? And I was like, I guess so. And I guess as like, you know, Roger, you know, was kind of alluding to, like what I didn't really know is I guess I was heading down there and I was her evening entertainment. So, I'd come home at night, you know, she'd be sitting at the bar, there'd just be the light there. Sometimes Peter would be there, they'd be talking about, you know, bridge or something. Other nights I would come home And then we would talk for like hours after I'd just written, you know, something, a chapter. She wanted to know exactly what I was working on with kids, you know, like, oh, so what's the current state of, you know, relationships with districts in the state of California? How are teachers working? Kind of like my personal job in education the past 10 years is that there's kids in schools that are failing out or the hard to reach, quote unquote, kids. My job is to transition them back into school. So Garth is always curious, you know, as a teacher who did similar type of work, what that means. And I know she knew a lot of teachers in that type of way. So I just second that with Roger, and that, you know, Garth is something we don't know. She was a serious intellectual. I felt like I was defending my dissertation every time I sneak in the door, trying to make sure sometimes I don't. And then, you know, Peter would be like, hey! And then I could, you know, roll into the kitchen. Other thing, you know, is like people have alluded to is, you know, Garth was a very stoic lady, but at the, you know, same time, she just had a heart of gold, and she was just really funny. like her humor was just so dry, you know, like she would just say the truth and she would just break up a room laughing because she doesn't even keep a straight face. I was like, and I knew after a while it was intentional, but at the start you were just like, what's going on? But Garth was just such a warm and loving soul, and I'm gonna deeply, deeply miss her, and there's definitely not gonna be another person I meet that's like her. Thank you.
Hard to top that one. I just wanted to welcome everybody to our house tonight for a great occasion. I think, you know, we all remember Garth in so many different ways. We knew her in so many ways. We knew her from the Hanscoms, kids who are here today, at the label, just playing tennis. My son Todd, who she was so great with and befriended Todd so well. And I was one. I can just say one thing. When she broke her hip, I was walking with her, and she fell and broke her hip, and I couldn't even believe it. And we were going to with a group to a movie. We were going to eat dinner and then go to a movie afterwards, a movie series. Well, after she fell and broke her hip, she went and had dinner with us.
Oh my God!
And then she sat through the movie with us. And then we took her to emergency. And so that's Garth. And both Jeanette and I had just great experiences with her. And we hearing all the great things about her, we just really appreciate everybody that showed up and told their great stories. Thank you.
I'm going to call my brother up, Travis. Here we go.
The youngest.
Well, it's hard to top my brother and sister. They're definitely the most articulate and communicative. I'm the engineer of the family. Garth, when we were kids, I remember Garth as the figure to look up to. She was always the world-traveling, confident. She had this fire in her bones for people. I actually really remember that growing up, she took an interest in people. And I've always wondered, you know, what was she thinking about them? What was she really traveling the world for? And then I got to know her. We went to travel to, say, Hawaii, New York, and we was going to NYU after my mom passed away. She's really stepped into our lives a lot later, and I understood a lot more about, you know, where Garth was really just she was the kind of person who really needed to have energy flow through her world is the way I knew it. And with our family in particular, it came to a fore because, you know, my mother, through the long life we grew up knowing that my mom was adopted in high school and that she had this glowing energy that Garth actually, you know, this is goodness in people. You can have that, and it doesn't always have to be bad. You know, there's a lot that she went through, and when my mom passed away, I was the oldest and the trustee of the estate, and all the years and figuring that out when I was in graduate school, as a second-year graduate student, and Casey was in school in NYU, and Rachel was in school, and it was a lot to work with. If it wasn't for Garth, we would have fell apart. And she really did teach me a lot about making sure that you, when you do commit yourself to something, that you make sure that you understand what that means and that you honor that. And she's a very loyal person. So I love Garth. I just remember her actually every day in the car. I call it my music hour. It's an hour and a half each way to work in the Bay Area. And I have long conversations with her actually, recently. And the one I really remember, and I've told a few people, is that we were in Hawaii, and Kauai, quite such a funny place, especially with regard to biology. You had chickens running around and all of this. But we went out on this boat, and we went out to the Nepali coast, and that's a pretty choppy ocean area, and actually even a little sick riding out there, but Garth was hanging on. And we went out to go see the sea turtles, and everybody was struggling to swim in the ocean, but Garth was kind of disappeared and just swam off on her own, just completely. And the whole crew was so busy raking in these parents and the kids over here, and then all these people who thought they were adventuring and just struggling, and then at the very end she just swims up like a fish and said, "Did you see the dozen turtles on the other side?" And she was the strongest lady. She just kept going. I'm gonna miss her, but she's still here. She's still with us. I feel her every day. So.
She paddleboarded too.
And paddleboarded, yes. She paddleboarded actually like an hour upriver.
She did. She was the only
Start
one.
going down.
All right, so around this time, I'm just going to open up the mic for anybody who wants to come forward. If you've been, something's in your heart, if you want to go ahead and share that about Garth, I want to make sure that you have that time. So, anybody lingering with anything that you would love to share? Okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming. And I know some people traveled really far, and that this was a big deal to get here. And thank you so much. And for everyone for being so vulnerable, for being in Garth's life. We're going to continue, of course, to be here, definitely share, get to know new people. Like someone said earlier, like Garth was a networker. There's a ton of very special people here. And there's a lot of food left. Ruth was chopping cheese. Toothpicks and sandwiches. I think we have sandwiches left. Yeah, and also something we didn't mention is that we have Garth's whole wine collection up on the bar. So if you want to have a taste of what Garth's palate was like, there's also wine. She has an assortment. She has some things that are like more recent that and then she goes, "Oh, okay, where's this all coming from?"
The table, the gifts.
Oh yeah, there's a table of gifts over here, so right behind the large tree in this wall. The table's there just in case if somebody wants to bring something back with them, feel free. Whatever your heart desires, don't feel obligated as well. But I know Teddy and Joni and so many folks have tried to create as many opportunities for you all to have a part of Garth as we move forward and try to deal with her loss.
Memory book.
Memory book.
Oh, there's also a memory book. And I saw Rich was signing in earlier. It's this table over here by where the name tags are. There's chairs you can sit down, you can write in it. And the memory book, of course, is going to be a special way that we could have sometimes a little bit more in-depth, knowledge about Garth. But, you didn't want to come up with a mic to share. Definitely, we would love that. We really, really love that. Oh, this bird. Okay, cool. Great. Okay. All right, so I'll go ahead and we're going to go
You did great.
You
So did
guys.
you.
That's good. Who wants to talk?
It's a video right now.
It's a video. What? So, Kristen, you want to say anything?
No, just gonna miss you, Garth. You were a great part of our lives.
Carly?
Not a big public speaker.
Garth, I always remember every time I call you, it's an hour and a half long conversation. Minimum.
There it was.
We'll miss you, Garth. You'll be
everything.
Oh my goodness, Rachel looks young.
So that was Cody.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, she looks young. That was Cody.
Oh, that's
Cody's right here. That's my youngest son.
Oh,
That's my, yeah.